now, Mona Magick.
Hello everyone, I am Mona Magick. Tonight's guest, I've got Jeff Harvey, and if you recall, I had it on my last show and we talked quite a bit about detoxification of the bio-mind and reaching the higher levels of consciousness to really work with different realms, really connect to the astral side and all sorts of heights. Tonight's topic is something that I'd like to really make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of, because in my research, I've found that even I was confused, and, heaven forbid that should ever happen, because I do a lot of research. So who I have with me again tonight is Jeff Harvey, and I'd like you to listen to him because he's got lots of information to share. And Jeff, I just want to thank you again for your time and really taking the time to agree to talk about radionics, because it is a topic out there that I have found lots of information that's contradictory of information that someone else may say. So I'd like for you to explain what radionics is, where it's come from, and just bring us up to speed so we understand exactly what the hell you're talking about.
Great. It's my pleasure to be talking with you again, Mona. The radionics is an interesting term. It's obviously a made-up term. You've heard the terms like scalar waves, torsion field waves, tachyon waves. But really, all we're talking about is electron flow. Now, as a child, we do radionics operations all the time. Each hemisphere of your brain is able to put out waves that are termed scalar waves. And that's just another term that was made up because they didn't know what else to call it. But these beams come straight out and they come to a point. And that point, depending on where you focus your mind, is where those two will interfere with each other. It's called an interference pattern. And when they hit that spot, you actually are transferring energy directly to that. And we all know that if you stare at the back of someone's neck long enough, they're going to snap around and go, what is that? I felt something. Right. Because those are actually scalar waves they're feeling hitting their skin. And the skin's quite sensitive back there. So as a child, we've done these operations all the time. Now, Carl Hans Wells is a fellow that came out of Austria who was very, very gifted in high school in working with yoga and many other ways of moving energy through his body. Now, you've heard the term chi energy or prana, as in the Indian Vedic sciences, and you've heard ode and many other different names for the energy that is in your body. Well, it's the same thing that we're working on with radionics. We're moving these energies, and there's a basic principle that most people seem to forget when they're talking about this, and that is beware where your thoughts go. Because where your thoughts go, so does your energy. We've all heard it as children, but most people didn't really get what that meant. You've looked on the back of the dollar bill, and the secret societies out there talk about order out of chaos. And what a lot of people don't realize is they've known about these type of technologies for many years. So what are we really talking about? Well, if you look at these waves as being naturally generated by our bodies, they're also generated by the planet. And you can see pictures from space, from satellites, showing these auras around the planets. That's the orgone field energy, or life force energy that's put out by the planet, its inhabitants, its plant life, animal life. And so that field is the same kind of wave that is being generated when we actually take in a radionics device. The old style ones that Abrams and others had invented were basically just a couple of geometric patterns that had basically two patterns that were inside of each other, identical. So you had, let's say a bunch of pyramids inside of each other, and they are all interconnected in two separate circuits. One would be out a voltage that was positive. The other one would be the opposite, or negative. And when you charged it up, what would happen is is those two waves, one being, let's say, a minus 3 volts and the other being positive 3, they would cancel each other. But what the government did when Maxwell's original equations were pilfered from him after he died, they changed them. Because what happens is when those two waveforms collapse down to zero, what they don't tell you is it creates a graviton or scalar wave that basically travels faster than the speed of light.
Okay.
And so the old devices would actually use that to take your thought form energy in the form of that scalar wave coming out of your hemispheres and transfer it all the way out to where you wanted it to go. And that's what the original devices did. Carl Wells said, that's pretty exhausting. We got to find a way around this. Now, you need a lot of energy to do these operations. So way, way back in the Inca and Aztec days, what you would find is some high priest would be up on a ziggurat, everybody would be lined up, and they would sacrifice a young brave right on the altar there, rip his heart out, and take that life energy and use it for a radionics operation. That's what the high priest would do. Now, in many years later, you heard about them sacrificing cats and dogs and chickens and things like that. And Carl's a very kind human being. And so he said there's got to be a better way to do radionics operations without harming anything. So he developed a radionics box that has a generator of this type of energy. And the way it works is you take metals, and I won't go into the exact formula because it's proprietary, but you do it in such a way that the electrons flow from one type to another and create an amplified effect of electron flow. So powerful that you can literally drive across the planet in an instant with no trouble at all and focus your mind to do that. Your mind can direct this kind of energy. And this is information that has been shielded from us for many, many years by secret societies that would prefer to be the ones that actually practice these sort of things and have this technology. Carl doesn't believe in that, neither do I. He used to call the box the automatic chicken because no one had to suffer for these things to do an operation. So these devices basically are able to move massive flows of energy. And the only thing necessary is someone who has the ability to operate it, and we call them operators for a reason, because you are doing an operation and you are solely guiding the operation based on how you structure it and what you want to accomplish. And there's a couple of pieces that are extraordinarily important in any radionics operation. Number one, you need to have an abstract idea in your mind of what you want to accomplish, first of all. Then you need to have an idea of how it's going to come to fruition. So if it happens to be that you want a new car, and it's possible to get a new car because you have a job, it's just not paying great, but it's possible. But it's not really probable because you're not able to save up tons of money to be able to purchase one right off the bat. So what you would try and do is find a way to either increase your hours or get a better paying job. And so what you might want to do is have a structural link to a trend to get a new position, with the idea that your target is when you get the new position, you will have a new vehicle in tow instead of your old clunker that's not working so well. So what you're doing is you're changing the rate of probability. And there's two factors that are utterly important in this. Number one, whatever it is you're trying to work on must be possible first and probable second. The best part is you can work on something that's very low probability and just work on the probability of it and jack that probability up to a point where it literally is now really possible for it to happen. And then the generator is, all it's doing then is making it come to fruition faster. That's all that's really occurring. Now, if you look at Thomas Bearden's website, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden, he's retired. He's been working with physicists around the world on these type of projects, and there's about 10 of them that now know how to bring energy out of matter in the ether. And it's a very chaotic place, that's randomly chaotic. It's not as chaotic as people think because particles are coming in and out of that matrix or the vacuum of space, if you will, all the time. Could be carbon, it could be gold, it could be a silver atom, it could be a microbe, a molecule, and they're forming all kinds of different things all around us all the time. But at such incredibly fast speed, they actually go right back away as fast as they come into fruition. You can't even see them. And so they call them ghost forms. This is what the physicists have named them because they're so fast. But by using radionics, you're taking your mental energy, combining it with the radionics device, and you're sending it to something to happen, which comes to fruition. Now, the theory we've come up with, and I was talking with Evan yesterday on this because we had actually done a grounding operation with a crystal. And we were talking about how this actually works. And if you look at these different kinds of operations, basically if you're trying to get energy coming out of the ether and you're focusing on it long enough, you can actually make something happen. But what if it's something that you're doing in somebody else, like having them quit smoking or changing their mind about something or hiring you for a job? All right, you're not affecting the matter, or are you? Because you're directing that electron flow, and your subconscious links with that person all the time anyway. You don't realize it, but we all know now that all particles are connected at all times. So when you send your energy to someone to say, hire you for a position, then what's happening is you're literally creating a chemical change in their mind that causes a change in their psyche to change how they view you. So there are many things that can be done with these things, but you need to understand those principles first so that you know where to go with this kind of technology and what you can do with it. And what you can do with it is tremendous.
I have got a few questions for you about that. I've calculated everything in my mind about what you've said, almost photogenically speaking. And one of the things that you mentioned was the encapsulation of the actual wave frequency that actually would go to the actual device and beget, some type of residual mirrored effect of the intent or the idea, if you want to call it. Let's talk about the device itself, because you're talking about a box, you're talking about a mechanism that is relating to the actual wave current, with whatever you're giving off. That makes it box itself a very powerful safe, if you will. A very powerful mirror effect that actually bounces it back. What gives the power? Is it the box, or is it the actual information of how the box reinterprets that wavelength back to your brain and to the ether of having something actually, let's just say, materialize? What actually is the actual boost? Because if you think about it, in an equation, algebraic, equation, or trigonometry, whatever equation it is, you're talking about you having yourself detoxified at some point, whereas that you can actually be that current. You then actually being able to have that open cavity within your mindset, within your bio-mind, to actually link to this device having the actual wavelength to actually go back and forth to create this ability to do something. What gives off, what is the power in this? Is it in the box? And the box brings it back and sort of like cooks it, if you will, and gives it back to you? Or are you giving it to the box and the box puts it out there into the ether?
It's twofold. It's actually both. As I told you, when you were children, we do these kind of operations all the time in our head because each side of your hemisphere is generating those waves, and those waves are going to the target. Whether it be your Aunt Sally across the country, and you're just thinking of her apple pie on a Sunday afternoon and a cup of tea, or if you're talking about something else. So we do this all the time. But when you use the box, remember, the box has a donut ring, like mine does, and this is about 7 pounds or so of very dense powdered metals that are layered in a certain way so that they can actually generate all of those electrons. Now, the energy that comes out of your mind in those waves couples with the energy from the box, and you basically, with your mind, you guide that out to the target, wherever it happens to be. Well, whether it's taking a right turn or a left or wherever it's going, you're linking those two together so that what happens is you basically are able to guide the box to the target. So then once you've stopped thinking about whatever that operation is, let's say you go off and have breakfast or a shower, whatever it is, you've stopped thinking about it. So your mental energy is no longer going there. But that device is still sending the energy to the link. And the way it's done is you set up pictures in your mind or archetypical images of what you want to use for your trend, which is what you're going to use for an effect to get what you want, which is your target. So if we were to look at these 2 points here, basically, here's your trend and here's your target. All right. You need to send energy to the trend to get it to do what you want. And then you've got to have the two of them go together so that the energy stays. And after you stop focusing on it, that device will. So what you're really asking me is, how do you get them to go to the target and link at the right setting, correct?
Yes,
so
indeed.
What we do is
how do you duplicate this as well? Because if you're thinking about it, let's say, for instance, if you wanted to attain a certain goal, you wanted to attain a certain, even the response of someone else, or to heal someone, or to interact. Science is about, repetitive, instances. And even, with, mental telepathy or anything telekinetic, you're talking about having these recorded over and over and over again, because parapsychology, doesn't get the funding for that instance because of the lack of continuous repetitive events. Is this device able to record the same thing? So can you use the same settings within the radionics to attain the same goals over and over again?
That's a great question, because let's talk about it. Let's say I wanted to see you have a beautiful amulet you're wearing. And let's say you had a different one that I thought was even nicer, and I wanted you to wear that one. And I wanted to influence you to do that. Well, the factors for me to influence you today are not the same factors that would cause you to be influenced next week. Would you agree?
Yes, indeed, yes.
Okay, so the settings we would use on the device would change. Now, there are two schools of thought in setting a radionics device with a generator built in. And not all radionics devices have generators. Carl Wells do, and that's the reason they're the only ones I use. But let's say that we do two separate ways of doing it. What you can do is, on my device, I have 5 rows of 3 dials each, a medium, of course, and a fine adjustment for each of 5 generators built into my device. So I've got a massive amount of energy and things that I can tune in. The first set is for a basic action, and I've got 3 knobs. And I can either make that basic action the same thing, or I make all 3 knobs different. So I can actually turn that knob while I focus my mind on what it is I want to accomplish for a trend. And let's say it was to change somebody's thoughts about which type of necklace or dress they wanted to wear, or car they wanted to purchase, or person they wanted to hire. So what I would do is I might set the first one as something to influence this person in a positive way towards me. We call them nepotism filters. It makes them view me as, say, a family member. So they're much more likely to follow my direction or take a suggestion from me. The next knob I might set to something else related to that, and the third one again. Or I could set all 3 of them so that that whole energy from that one generator is going directly to one goal. It's up to me how I want to structure it. And I would turn the knob as I focus on what I want, until I feel like I've got it at the right spot. And then I would simply go on to the next one, focus on that operation and do it, and so on. And you do this with all 15 knobs on this device. And one set is for the basic action, another is for the trend, another group of 3 is for the trend environment. So let's say I was working on to have you change to a different necklace. All right, so if we got to the trend, and the trend is you were going to sort through all your jewelry to decide on what you wanted to wear for a particular outing. And the trend environment would be you, or your subconscious, or your conscious mind. That's the environment in which we're operating. Then we would go to the target, whatever it happens to be. Change the necklace, leave that one on for a week because it looks great, whatever it is. And then we have one other set of knobs we should talk about, and this is very important. In every radionic operation, a certain amount of that energy that you send out may come back and get bounced back. And it may get bounced back because the operation is impossible. It may be that there's just a slight obstruction and it bounces back. So what we do is we set up a set of knobs so that there's an alternate target. So what I usually do is I set it up for something really positive. So if the energy comes back that I'm sending out there, I'll send it to, if it bounces back, any of it, I send it to something like improve the growth rate of my plants in my garden, or something along those lines. You can set it to anything you want. So what we do is we set it up so that these things actually have somewhere to go if there is a blockage that we have to go around in a further operation. And that's a really important thing for people to consider, because if we look at these 2 points, basically we've got 2 points, and let's say we're sending the energy out. Each time we send the energy out to that location from our generator, it actually sends back a little no matter what back to us. So basically that's coming back this direction. So if we send some out here, it'll send a little bit back the other way. And then it goes back and forth several times as the energy is going by. And let's say that you're looking at basically a wave that's that wide. Each time it bounces back, it's narrower and more focused until it's a very thin pencil beam. And so when we set those rates arbitrarily, just by turning the dial and having intention, that's one way to do it. The second way is do a stick pad response, because there's a rectangular pad on the device, and that's when we get into ideomotor responses, using your entire mind and your nervous system to link like an antenna out to the field of information that matches what you're trying to accomplish in that setting. So what you would do is take the middle finger of your right hand and draw counterclockwise, very light circles on this stick pad while you turn the knob and focus on what you want. And when your nervous system and your mind link to that field of energy at that setting, your finger will literally stick to the pad ever so slightly. And you've got the correct setting for that. Only now you've engaged your entire nervous system with your mind, with the device, with the electron flow, with the field of energy in a back and forth beam that narrows down to an absolute pinpoint focus. And if it's probable and possible, it comes to fruition fast.
Todd,
I've looked at.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you that, but Jeff, God, there's a lot of questions I've got with what you've just said. You've said a mouthful, and the reason why I may seem a bit bothered by what you've said, because you've covered a lot, and I've got 3 questions for you. Number 1, how safe is this? Number 2, where is the actual ritual in this, and the actual aspect of if a person is into the occult, into the hermetic arts, into any type of Eastern occult of any sort, any type of esoteric arts, who does not care about that anymore when you can have a radionics device? And lastly, I'd like to ask you, but I don't want to go into the controversy of this, but the aspects of using it for negative reasons. And of course, there is no such thing as negative, because it's a matter of what a person perceives as negative. But you're talking about the military, and you're talking about how you can actually use this in a very let's just say in ways of people who are probably not prepared to actually defend themselves against such devices that may encourage a suggestion that may actually happen. It's almost like a mental weapon that can be used upon people unbeknownst to them. So I've asked you 3 questions.
Absolutely.
You can answer whatever way you'd like to answer back.
All right. Safety. There's no such thing as safety on this planet. Anyone who thinks that is deluded beyond their wildest dreams. There's no such thing. So safety is a function of your exposure to danger and whether or not you have some ability to defend. So no, there is no safety involved. The safety, if you're using one of these devices, is in what you are doing. So do you have a strong mind? Can you control your mind? Can you be aware of where your thoughts go because you know your energy is going there? So not focusing on things that might harm people that you don't want to harm, but you just happen to have that thought cross your mind.
Sure.
Safety is something that's in the mind of the person practicing. Now, if we go out a little further in this, and your question was really about using it for negative purposes. I think that was what your real question was on the third one. What was your second question? Because I think it related to the first one.
Well, the thing is that you're talking about using this upon, people, they may not even know that, you've got the added advantage, because you're talking about ritual. You're talking about, in the 80s, they had a thing about the parapsychology was very heavy, in reference to telepathic, abilities and telekinetic abilities and things like that, or kinetic abilities. So it's one of those things where you've got this device, and with mind over matter, with ritual, with using and interacting with entities, and plus this device, you can become a powerhouse, really. You can really become this device can actually help you in many ways, even, unknown to the actual user, to a point where it can become very, it could be dangerous. And I use that word again because, as you know, people will always go on the bookshelf for grimoires of how to trash your ex, how to get this person, how to get that, and not even work for it. Person may not even be attracted to you, or you may just want to trash your boss because you just don't like the way they don't give you time off or something like that. So I'm talking about really how to work with this, how to, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous in the wrong hands. And I'd like for you to clarify. I would like for you to clarify, the strengths of this, and the precautions that one may want to take in order to really not get it out of hand. Because, as you mentioned, there's no such thing as safety. And if a person has not detoxed themselves, if a person's mindset is not in the right area, I see how this could actually be used against them to their own, not even knowing that it could be used against them, because they can become their own worst nightmare. Their own inner demons may come out to the point where they can come to a sense of self-destruction when people want to empower themselves. It becomes a sense of self-destruction because of the, let's just say, the inner demon on them overbecomes them to a point of being invoked with a self-possession of not who they really know of who they are.
You're covering all the most important facts. Number one, let's say you're someone doing an evocation or you're working with a talisman and you want to charge it with a particular spell or magic or whatever, imbue it with whatever. And we can get into evocation versus invocation in a few minutes. But if you take a look, let's say you want to charge a talisman with energy. These devices are phenomenal for that because it couples your mental intent with whatever it is that you use as a link or an archetype image that you want to take the traits for and link to your talisman. Same thing with an evocation. If you've got an entity, whether it be Saint Michael or whether it be Belial or whoever, you're basically, if we go back to what we discussed earlier about the underpinning physics behind this, you're feeding energy to a thought form out in the middle of the vacuum of space that you're bringing into matter reality, or a thought form into it, and you're feeding it. Now, I never use my radionics device when I'm angry, unless I'm going to do a targeted attack. Now, why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, because it will amplify your own emotional feelings in some respects. And you can actually get more angry having your generator sitting on because it's so powerful, and that feedback link goes back and forth between you, and all of a sudden you've got a pencil thin beam that's mirroring those emotions. That's why when you focus on a target, you focus on your intent to that target, and you want to make sure it's pretty clean. So danger as far as being able to protect yourself, my recommendation is never do operations when you're angry, unless it's for defense. And that's a whole different ball of wax, because then you need that angry energy to accomplish what you're attempting to do. But having said that, let's take some of these young folks who they're pissed off at mom, dad, their coworker, whatever, for some really ridiculous reason. And they want to go grab a grimoire and whack them. You know, the bottom line is, the good news in this is that that's a pretty juvenile way of going through life, because frankly, you don't have time to kill all the people that are going to piss you off. So the good news is really that they are people who their emotional stability has been changed by their level of toxin deposition in their extracellular matrix. So they're not themselves. They think they are. They don't know any better because all they know is the slow deposition, and so they don't see themselves changing over the years. But you take a young man and a woman that get married early on in life, and 20 years from now, she says, "Where did I come up with this ass from? My God, he's a terrible person." Well, he didn't get that way overnight. It was steady toxin deposition. So you take these young people who are already toxic and want to do nasty things with these devices. The good news is they can, but they won't be very effective because they haven't cleaned themselves out to have enough cohesive thought to actually keep the energy flowing and get the job done. And that's why I recommend clean yourself out, get yourself emotionally balanced, and then start exploring these really cool technologies for maybe helping humanity or doing some things that are really neat and interesting. So yes, it's very powerful. Yes, the military weaponized them many years ago. But how you choose to use this is up to you. And whether it's to attack an enemy that has attacked you, or respond, or protect yourself, that's up to you and what kind of karma you want to develop. And I know there are folks out there that don't believe in karma. And in some regards, I suspect karma has a lot to do with your belief in it. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's a possibility. So when you talk about being able to use these for negative purposes, absolutely. And there are many people that buy them strictly for that reason. I form such a tight bond with my unit, and I do mean a very tight bond. I am so coupled to this, no matter where I go, I can focus that thing, even if I don't carry along with me a transfer couple. I can actually direct it anywhere. I don't even need a software program anymore to do it. And that's one of the reasons why at this level of power, you do need to be careful and you need to decide on how it is you want to live your life when you use these technologies.
Well, you mentioned about charging sigils, and you've mentioned about, really that energy, and we're talking about energy going back and forth, and you just mentioned something very interesting about not having a crutch. So if that, I would assume that over the time that you've actually used this device, the radionics device, that you've increased the actual, let's just say frequency, or am I correct in saying it's a frequency? Exactly. What is the scientific term that you use for the actual current in between the device and yourself?
All right. You're using pathways in your brain to create links in long-term memory so that the next time you do an operation, your brain has an easier time of finding that pathway. And the more you do that same operation or evocation or invocation, the more, the simpler it is for your mind to be able to go to that location and be able to accomplish it. So with regards to, let's say, evocation, let's say you're evoking Archangel Michael or somebody, whoever it happens to be, you're still using a crutch in standard ritual magic. You're using a censer, you've got charcoal, you've got incense, you got your dagger, you've got your chalice, you've got a couple of candles. This is all accoutrement of the mind. You're using them as archetypical symbols, if you understand what you're doing, to make your subconscious do things it's not normally used to doing and create a set of pathways you can easily go back to. But you take any good mage, and I'm not talking somebody in practice, I'm talking about somebody that knows what they're really doing with quantum physics. They don't need an altar, they don't need candles, they don't need a dagger, they don't need the chalice or incense. They can do the operation without a device. The only problem is they can only do it for a certain amount of time before they stop being able to focus on the target. And that's why the machine basically frees you up. It's like an automatic vacuum cleaner. Set it and forget it and go out and do the rest of your day.
I see. Okay. Well, that sounds spectacular. My only question is, I'm not sure why, most practitioners don't even really invest in something like this because, of course, most people, they'll, go off into some spiritual store, metaphysical store, something like that. But you never see radionic equipment being sold at any metaphysical stores whatsoever. And in fact, I haven't seen one store that would actually do that. And with that said, I've seen a few on the internet. Can you really clarify some of the things that, are out there? Because from what I've seen little tiny, boxes that look like something from the old store Radio Shack or some type of, out here they have Matlin, Maplin in the UK. But is this a device that you can actually pick up off of, your nearest, flea market, or what's the best place to actually go? Because I do know that you do actually sell the devices.
If you go to www.jeftech.net, jefftech.net, and there's only one F in Jeff. In our store section, we have a Radionics section that has all of the devices we have. Now, I only sell devices that have a built-in generator, and a lot of the devices out there, and I'm talking the majority of Radionics devices out there, don't have a generator built in. They're just a box with a couple of dial settings and a couple of circuits, and you use all of your energy to guide them. Well, you and I both know that if you're going to use your energy all the time, you're going to get depleted. The beautiful part about having one of these devices with a generator built in is it can help recharge you. And that's one of the spiffy things I do with mine. I put mine on the earth resonance frequencies, the 5 main band frequencies. And I use it to charge water. If I get food Like, let's say I get a pack of lunch meat and, they put nitrites in there. I will put that in there and I will rebalance the information field around the cells so they're no longer damaging. So I use it for a lot of that, but I also use it for charging me up and also for my pet. So these devices that are out there, there are very few places that you will see these used for sale, because when people get them, they get them, and most of these are secret society members and people who are doing evocation and invocation work, because they know that when they have it, they're far more powerful. So they don't sell their device. If they want a bigger and stronger one, they just go get another one. And then they take the one they had before and they add the two of them together, or they put one on a particular operation and use the other for others. My device can run 15 or 20 operations all at one time. But most of the time, I do one. Now, I told you before that I've been working on doing a couple of things like linking my conscious mind to my subconscious mind. My latest program with this was designed to go out and seek out other timelines and dimensions in which I have become very successful in my strategies, and bring those strategies into this timeline so I adopt them and I actually link to them. That's my latest program that I have designed and run. And most people don't really think about other timelines, but the fact that there are such things as other dimensions and timelines, you could be a baker out there in another timeline. You don't know what you are. So the idea is use your subconscious and your bio-mind to go seek out those locations using your radionics, cross those barriers, and bring those traits right home.
Well, I guess it's not about trying to, even decipher, the actual equation and in this particular show, because my mind is going through everything and actually trying to put everything in an equation right now as we speak, as to, okay, fine, well, it does that. I've been actually calculating, in the back of my mind of, how everything works and where everything is stored. I was just wondering, is there a vibrational resin that stays with the actual device from one user to one user? Because as you're talking about energy and you're talking about people don't let go of this particular device, I would think that there would be some type of resin of energy that is actually encapsulated or it's shared in between the device. Because I'm thinking if the device actually jumps off, let's just say these pathways, that there would be some type of resin from the last person that you would actually pick up this energy. So would you say that this is a very private tool to use per person, or is it something that could actually be shared?
Okay. Do you remember I told you I form a very tight link with my device?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. I have a Rad 5. The first machine that I tested was a 2400 HD, which is 2 massive generators. I tested this for Evan. He's a young fellow that was interested in this, and he's just gone way, way out there with this. And so I tested it for him for about a week, and then he took the device over home. And over time, what you do is, if you pick up a device from somebody else, or if you're just going to borrow one from someone, you should clear it first. And you can use a blasting glyph. You know what they are. You can use black holes. John McDonald taught me a very neat one we did in an operation yesterday. We took a crystal. Evan picked up a really nice one. It was, about 6 inches big. And basically you break it in half and you take one half and you wind some copper wire around it on a coil. Then you bury that under a tree near a stream so that it actually will ground the energy in that half. You take the other half home, and I prefer the pointy half on a single terminated crystal, and you use that as the structural link for any negative energies or thought forms that accumulate in you, your device or your surroundings, and you transfer them to the other one that's buried in the ground and you ground it. That's a psychological structural link. And that's one of the ways of clearing these out. And you should, when you borrow a machine or you get a machine from a manufacturer, you should clean it. Now, when I sold Evan the Rad 5 I had, he cleared it. And when I got my new Rad 5 from Carl, I did not clear it because I trust Carl's energy. So as far as I was concerned, if he wanted to slap some energy on there, I was all for it. So I didn't clear it.
So I would assume that if you had some devious thing about your mind and you had this liking for someone and you had these lust thoughts for someone, you'd say, here, take my device, be my guest. And voila.
I love the way you think.
I'm a little twisted sometimes. Anyway, so I'm thinking that's exactly how you would actually do it. But with that said, I'd like to go into a different take on this, because we were talking about evocation, and me personally, I prefer invocation, but it's about, okay, evocation, invocation, whatever people like to do. I was just wondering about the actual wavelength and the path, the doors, the realms that we actually open up. Because let's just say it's all thought form. Let's just say nothing exists. Let's just say that it's all in our head. We're all, mental. Let's just say that you are experiencing some trip. You are going through some surreal situation and you are interconnecting. You're also opening up doors. If you're opening up a door internally, psychically, mentally, esoterically, and spiritually, you're opening up a door elsewhere as well if you're talking about other realms. So with that given, you're, at some point, I'm quite sure it's come through your mind, what type of passageways that, are we actually linking into this? Because it's one way coming in from the device to our minds and then us reaching out. But what about that coming back into us? What about having that device closed down? Because you're saying having the device closed down with you, but I'm thinking that this is also, too, a frequency or some type of doorway or some type of wavelength for other things to come through to us, if that makes any sense. Because I see a one way from that person to the machine, but I think the machine actually has a capability of extracting itself from your mind, and for you using that towards some type of communication, as they will with, what is it? They've got SETI. Okay, SETI has got that little communication thing going. This has to be some type of way of communication, whereas that you don't have to interconnect it with yourself. Am I making myself clear, or am I just thinking loony at this point?
No, it's exactly the case. All right, let's go back to a little further. Let's go back to my childhood. As a little boy in my bedroom, I would see all kinds of dark-shaped entities flying around my room, and they scared the crap out of me. I'd hide under the covers, and that would be the end of it until I scared myself to sleep. As an adult, that still happens. Now, whether or not my Radionics device has reopened portals, or whether or not they've always been there, I don't know the answer to that. I don't see any reason why two-directional communication can't work consciously. But you're asking me about it happening with our planet. And this goes back to exactly what you and I have discussed on a number of occasions, is the strength of your mind and your ability to strengthen it through hermetic exercises and practices and rituals that can make it extraordinarily strong, and entities can be combated if they are combative. Now, as you know, that one time I had an entity that was in my kitchen, and in an astral form, I chased that into my living room and had a very short conversation with Beelzebub, where I not only berated him, but I made him weep bitterly for what he had done. And my point is that if you are strong enough and you set your intention to only do one-way communication and shut the door when you're done and you're finished with an operation, then you'll be able to do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of weak-minded, or what many secret societies call the profane, which are people who are not interested in these things that we are, like consciousness expansion. I'm not a fan of them playing with these devices because, frankly, their minds are so weak, they don't even know what they're doing, and they don't really have a serious goal in mind. They just want to screw at someone or have sex with someone or, do something that's not really in their highest and best purpose, which goes all the way back to our original discussion. You need to clean up your matrix, get yourself reasonably balanced so you can make maximum use out of this kind of energy in the best possible way.
I see. But with that, I have to say that, there's a lot of research that needs to go in before someone actually purchases, the Radionics device. And there's a lot of conditioning, self-conditioning, and discipline. And I say discipline because it's not a one-of. It's a continuous exercise of making sure that someone is actually toned. It's just as much as a person has a six-pack or whatever the case may be, just as much as it takes a person to actually be disciplined to be obese, as it does a person to be very fit and spiritually adept, whereas that they actually can connect and attone themselves to actually to communicate. And this device is no different than anything else. It's not something that you can actually plug and play because it's a matter of that natural and bio chemical balance that one has to have in order to actually be prepared for this. Just as the astronauts prepare, for any type of physical ability to do something as anyone else, to dance or to do whatever they do. So with that said, the devices that you do have let's say a plan or an instructional. You do take people bit by bit from detoxification to deciding on which wavelengths or frequencies that someone should go on, and you just don't just say, hey, it's X amount of dollars to purchase. There you go. Just turn this knob there and you should be good to go. You do take people through the actual proper regime in order to attain what they want and work with them. From my knowledge, you do. Is that correct?
I'll give you an example. I'm working with a rather high-powered attorney who did a lot of work in D.C. recently. This attorney wanted to clean up their system a little bit, wanted to get a radionics device that was powerful enough to accomplish some very heavy-duty tasks. This attorney was going up against a really sick individual who practices black magic in a very bad way, not a good way. And this is a person who's very dishonest. So I said, look, the first thing you have to do is get cleaned up a little bit. But while you're cleaning up, I want you to go through the courseware first, and all the courseware is free. You only have to buy the device. So I said, here's what you do. The first thing you're going to do is get one of each of the four elements: air, water, fire, and earth. So go grab me some air and let me know how that works out. So basically, I said, take each one and take a day and meditate on that particular element. And the smart thing to do is, while you're using the machine in an autogenic mode on that particular device, it has a dial which sets specific rates just for autogenic training. And the autogenic training course is free. So I said, learn the autogenic training, and then while you're in an autogenic state, go do your meditations on each one of those elements and write down in a notebook any thoughts that come to you during this. Start your journal, as you know. And so the next thing was, after you get autogenics under your belt, after you've got the four elements under your belt, now you go through what we call the course in Magick, which is really how to use astro influences, alignments, being able to link to different specific planetary energies and higher order energies. And once you understand those things, then during the middle of that course, you go into a course on consciousness. So you can link as one in consciousness with everything. When you get completed through this, then you can go play with runes or whatever you want. But by the time you're done with that level of learning, and this is a month to 2 months to get all this done, you literally can be a very, very quick master of your device. And so all along, you're learning, but you're studying the things that are underpinning what you need to know. If I go over this with them and they don't do the work, I'm not going to force them because that's impossible. Right. But I teach them what to do so that they can do it. And then typically I have a gentleman, Evan, who will do their natal chart properly. And then he will go over with them some of those underpinnings to give them an idea how to use what we call an astrological greenhouse. And this is a term Carl came up with. Basically, you're born under a certain set of influences or trends the moment you go to the birth canal. A certain ascendant, a certain other alignment set, and it has general patterns that apply. What if you don't like them? You want somebody down the street. All you do is set up a fake alignment and put it into your life. And you can literally take those trends and apply them to your subconscious and your subconscious life. So we can actually do things like that and teach you how to set those up. And that is something that you do pay for because Evan does charge for his time. All the rest of the training is absolutely free, and it's everything you need to get started.
I see. That's a lot to take in. That is a lot to take in for anyone, but I can see where it could be extremely beneficial, from charging your sigils to really working to the point of influencing someone, to encouraging situations. It's a piece that would be definitely part of someone's altar, but I can rest assure you that I'm quite sure that it's not amongst many people's altars. It should be if they really want to experience the increased benefits that the Radionics device has. That's a lot, and I would really encourage everyone to, if you're really interested, to visit Jeff's site, because honestly, this 1 hour video is not going to give you the vast amount of information that you really should read up on and really check out. And I'm sure, Jeff, that you would actually agree with that, because there's so much information that you have actually contained in it, and what you'll also see within this video, that honestly, it's not something that you really want to just say, okay, fine, let's just try it out, because it's something you've got to actually prepare for. Would you actually agree with that, Jeff?
Absolutely. And if you're a tech geek like I am, or a physics geek, and you like the techie side of things and you want to have some of the real physics underpinnings, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden, he's retired, he's got a website, www.cheniere.org, CHENIERE.org. And he's got a massive amount of information up there on electrodynamic unfolds and how radionics really works. And you can learn a lot up there.
I see. Well, with that, I believe that concludes this particular session, because we're going to be bringing a lot more information about the other devices that you've got, which is the Shaki Shiva device, and increasing the actual evocation sensitivity to entities, and what people really want to know about when it comes down to all this power that you can get from, all of everything that we've spoken about, and going forward and bringing this to the point of where you want to be spiritually. So with that, Jeff, I want to thank you for again joining me and speaking on Radionics tonight.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Good to be with you.